Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Thanks for showing up for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And this episode, we have Adiel Gorel, who's been at it since the 80s. We're talking wealth-building real estate investments for busy professionals. And we're talking primarily single-family home investments and why they were so surprising to Adiel when he learned about them. Let's go. This is episode 217 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Adiel Gorel. Adiel is the founder and CEO of International Capital Group, a world-renowned real estate investment firm founded in the San Francisco Bay Area since 1987. Old school like me, Adiel has been teaching investors how to secure a strong financial future for college, business investments, and retirement. Adiel, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to you and get your wealth of expertise on this show because this is the mindful approach to real estate investing. And I know you also do a lot in the wellness space. So it'll be interesting to talk about those as they, go to real estate investing. But when was the first time that you remember being interested in real estate?
Well, in some ways, it was almost forced upon me as a child. I grew up in a family of real estate, developers.
Yeah.
As a child, all I wanted to do was play and have fun. Wasn't interested in what they were doing, but still it was in my face all the time.
Yeah.
I was exposed both to the power, and then I was also exposed around the dinner table to two main expressions that my family used to say.
Yeah.
Both of them accompanied by a certain hand motion. One of them was, why didn't we buy these properties 10 years ago? They could have been so, okay?
Yeah.
The other one is, why did we sell 10 years ago? Okay. So I kind of learned, you just buy and you hold.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the classic phrase is buy real estate and wait instead of wait to buy real estate, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's similar to me, though. I grew up with a dad who was an investor, and he was talking to me before I was interested, but I was really learning more than I thought. Did that also happen for you, that you trying to avoid it, but they just wouldn't stop talking about it, so you had more knowledge than you thought when you were ready to go?
Absolutely. And actually, I remember when I was about 16 or 17, my grandfather, who was the head of the development company, started transferring some of those holdings to my sister, to me, to my brother. And he explained, I'm doing it because of tax reason.
Yeah.
So I started getting that, hey, this is not so bad. In fact, so much so that in hindsight, I wish he didn't do it, because I remember there was one time when I was about 17, very young, and I thought, hey, maybe I'll never have to work. That's not a good thing for a young person to think.
Yeah, we have very similar backgrounds. My dad put properties in trust for me, but he was buying smaller. He wasn't doing development, so he was buying rental properties, and he would introduce me to the tenants at 14, 15 years old, and then I started collecting rent. So when I was collecting rents from $500 rentals, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is it, but I was learning a lot. When did you start to take the plunge yourself and realize, hey, this is something that I want to go into as well?
So I can give you a slight background how we started. Yeah. It's going to take about 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 4.
We have plenty of time. Let's do it.
All right. So my background is actually all in high tech. I'm an electrical engineer and computer scientist. I came to the San Francisco Bay Area to go to graduate school, and I was doing my grad studies in electrical engineering. Then I taught at the university, so completely high tech.
Yeah.
And then it was the beginning of the 1980s, and I got my first Silicon Valley job. So I was living, in Palo Alto, right next to the university.
Yeah.
back in the beginning of the 1980s, there was no Amazon, no Google, no Meta or Facebook, none of the above.
It was a much different Silicon Valley, right? I was listening to a podcast yesterday and it was with the founder of LinkedIn. And he was saying that it was actually Silicon Valley because they were talking about the silicon chips now. And now it's like Software Valley.
So true. So true. Back then, the word silicon really meant something. And I'm talking about the chips, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the company that I was hoping to work for back then, without all the giants that we know now, was Hewlett-Packard Labs in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
That was the it company for me. And luckily, I was accepted to work there. So two things happened when I got my first job at HP Labs in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
I was very young. Number one, they paid me so much better than Stanford did when I was teaching there. So I said, whoa, I'm getting a lot of money. It's like very much like today, a young engineer gets a job at Google.
Right.
So, whoa, what a salary. Okay, fine. And then the second thing was, I was the youngest person in my group pretty much. And there were a couple of people the age that we are kind of now.
Yeah.
So I looked at those people and I said, whoa, they must be so wealthy working here for 30 years and getting paid like this. Then I got to know them. They were not wealthy. Not at all. They owned their own home and a 401k.
Yeah.
I said, I gotta build my own empire.
Did you know at that time? I mean, financially, obviously, you're still young. The money's coming in, but did you understand how they were kind of misusing their 401k and not using their income for other options?
I was not impressed in any way. They owned, like I said, they owned their own home. The 401ks were fine, but nothing like. I said, I'm not going to work here for 30 years only to show this much.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I drew on my childhood, the real estate exposure. I said, okay, I live in Palo Alto. I'm in Silicon Valley. I get paid. I'm young. I'm single. My expenses are close to nothing, really.
Yeah.
And I'm going to buy rental homes. Now, at that time, I made a discovery, which for me was a discovery, but for most people in the US is not a discovery. But that is actually the reason why I have not retired, because even though I formed our company officially in 1987, I was doing it about 3 years prior. So this is really 40 years that I'm doing. And an active investor. So one of the questions I always get is, why aren't you retired? Why are you on this podcast? Come on. So the reason why I'm not retired is what I was exposed to back then working at HP Labs and wanting to start building an empire. I was told, and I know you're an American. I can hear it.
I am.
Most Americans, the sentences I'm going to say now are like, what? Because they were born into a certain reality and it seems normal. To me, it didn't seem normal. So they told me, in the United States, you can get a loan on a property, a mortgage, called 30 years fixed. Now, you talk to 99% of all Americans, say, what the heck? We know 30 years fixed. What are you talking about?
Right.
Well, in pretty much every other country in the world, to the best of my knowledge, in the US, we have inflation. So if you think about the cost, of tomatoes, the tomato costs maybe $2 a pound now, whatever. I'm just making it up.
Yeah.
In 10 years, it's likely to be $4 a pound. Inflation, we all know that. Well, everything in the US goes up with inflation because inflation weakens the dollar, and we need more dollars to buy the tomato, the avocado, to pay rent, to buy the house, to buy the headphones. We know that. And yet, in the midst of all of this, somebody, which according to many foreigners, that somebody must be insane, is giving you a loan where neither the monthly payment, principal and interest, nor the mortgage balance ever changes, while everything else, the tomatoes, the avocados, the shoes, the rents, the houses, the glasses, the sweaters, That means inflation and time, inflation is your best friend.
Yeah.
Because everything goes up, this thing never changes, which means in real dollar, this gets smaller and smaller and smaller and tinier and smaller. And you don't have to wait for 30 years. The unbelievable life-changing results come in 12 to 14 years. That's why I almost am a little sorry that they call it 30 years fixed. I wish they had another name like Benny or Kevin,
Yeah.
30 years. You don't have to wait for 30 years. But to me, back then, it completely blew my mind. I said, I see the biggest financial gift in the world. Because just for curiosity, what is it like in other countries? They give you a mortgage, you make payments, and your monthly payment, PI, the principal and interest, keeps changing with inflation.
Yeah.
Not with a yearly cap, not with a lifetime cap. It just tracks inflation. So the tomatoes cost 7 times more after so many. The mortgage payment is 7 times more. The loan balance, which you cut by principal payments all the time, also keeps up. So it's not, uncommon. I actually own property, in other country.
Yeah.
So here I am. I got a mortgage. I'm paying like clockwork. I'm such a good borrower, paying like clockwork. 12 years later, my monthly payment is 4 times higher, and my loan balance after 12 years of payment is about 3.5 times higher. Kept up with inflation.
Yeah.
So I said, whoa, this is insane. So I said, okay, I got to get as many of those as I can. Started buying single-family homes because the 30-year fixed-rate loan is only given on 1 to 4 residential units. So mostly single-family. Started buying homes. Well, that was in the 1980s.
Well, yeah. What were the rates then when you started to buy? Because we can compare to now what people think is high.
What a great question. What a fantastic question, Jonathan. When I started buying, the interest rates were 14%.
Yeah, I knew it, yeah.
That's why I don't need to go to stand-up comedy anymore. When I read in the media, the world has collapsed, it's the end of the world, the rates are 6.5.
I know.
I don't need to go to any comedy anymore.
Yeah.
So I started buying, and in the 1980s, and you probably were experiencing it, people said only buy within 30 minutes drive of where you live. So I was doing it too. I was living in Palo Alto and buying in Silicon Valley.
There was no internet to show us pictures of all the other places that we could invest, really. So I remember, again, pre-internet investing, even the MLS was just a book, and there was a very black and white picture of a house. You had to actually go see them all. So that actually gave us the opportunity to get a lot more reps as investors than I think investors get now, because they could just sit on the computer and look. You and I were out, like you said, if you're going within 30 minutes, then you can go see a lot. So you get a lot more actual personal activity, which means you learn a lot more about houses in general.
Actually, you just reminded me of one thing that happened. Back when I started in the beginning of the 1980s, you could assume an existing VA loan on a subject to basis. You sign one piece of paper. It was very easy.
Yeah.
Same for the FHA loans. That's no longer the case. But I remember one time I got a call from a realtor in San Jose, California, which is in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
He was calling me and said, "You're not going to believe what I found. I hope you're sitting down." I found a home with an assumable loan at 12%. Get in your car right now. Come here right now. 12,
And you probably did. But I think the perspective is so important for everybody listening now, because a lot of people haven't been through those cycles and don't understand that, that high 2.75% rate was absolutely ludicrous and caused part of the problem. So now at 6, we're just really in the middle of a historical average to actually low.
6 and 6.5 is actually very low.
Yeah.
Over the past 40 years, I would say 25 of my 40 years of doing this, if you told me you're a benevolent lender who's going to give me a loan at 7.5, I'd be dancing in the streets.
Yeah. It's a different way. Yeah. I think it helps people see that there are cycles to real estate, just like cycles to everything. So it will help people understand that you still have to be looking now because, like, as we're both saying, these rates aren't high historically. They're just pretty actually decent comparatively. So there's no reason to stop looking now. You just have to learn to vet the deals better.
Actually, from my experience in the past few years, there's every reason to be looking now. And here's why. During COVID, the Fed lowered rates to the lowest place in the history of this country. So the mortgages for a homeowner were as low as 2.5 even.
Yeah.
And for investors, maybe 3.25. What happened was the media, which makes everything 100 times bigger, started screaming, the rates are the low, go and buy. Millions of people said, I'm going to buy. I wasn't planning on buying, but I'm buying. So what happened was the demand was enormous. The builder, we like to buy brand new homes only. I'll talk about that a little bit later. The builders who build the brand new homes were still suffering from supply chain COVID issues.
Yeah,
so
big time.
Supply was low, demand was high, so the prices went up. But also the builders said, I can be very choosy. I'm getting much more business than I can handle. Number one, I don't want to work with investors. No investors, only homeowners. That's it. So as investors, during the time that the rates were 3, we had to struggle to buy even one home, let alone 10.
Yeah, and those regular home buyers are always going to pay more than us because we don't want to pay. That's why we're investors.
Not only that, they put only 3.5% down.
Right.
And so they're not price sensitive. Another 10,000, 20, 30, who cares? They're only putting 3% down. So now, when the rates went up, now the media is saying, and everything is 100 times bigger because of the media, don't buy. The rates are atrocious. Sit on the sidelines. So the demand is low. In the meantime, the builders were working hard to make supply higher. So now the builders are so friendly to investors. They love investors.
Yeah.
In fact, they will give you gifts, including, ironically, paying down the rate to maybe 5 or 4.5. Or I've even seen 4. So the most incredible time to buy is right now, because let's say that in the future, I don't know the future, but let's say the rates will go down to 4. I doubt they will go back to 3, but let's say they go down to 4. The media is going to hype it all up. Millions of people are going to want to buy. Prices are going to go up. Builders are not going to want to blah, 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 blah. In the meantime, you already secured an excellent buy. Buying peacefully, buying 1 home, 10 homes, 22 homes, whatever. And if the rates go down, you refinance.
Exactly.
What the heck?
Yeah, so over the time, especially as rates started to go up at the beginning of that part, I always called it a double windfall because of that. Not only do you say you have to wait 2 or 3 years for rates to come down 1 to 2 points, wow, you not only get the appreciation that we're all getting in America for the last several years, it's almost impossible not to appreciate on real estate if you buy remotely well. Plus, you get the rate that comes down. So that's the double windfall. And that's why it does make sense, exactly what you're saying. If you buy now and you're getting a good deal now, wow, what's it going to look like even 1% lower when you also have gained 50,000 in appreciation?
Now, somebody will say, yeah, but when you refinance, there's a cost to it. In 2 seconds, you can calculate whether it's worth it or not.
Right.
So going back to my 14%, so every home I started buying started out with a negative cash flow. Back in the beginning of the 1980s, Fannie Mae didn't have a limit on the number of loans that you can have. No limit.
Right. Yeah.
Also, as an investor, I was allowed to put only 10% down with PMI or private mortgage insurance, which I did. Because even though I was well paid, I was young with not much cash. So I want to stretch my cash.
You want to get more, yeah.
Yeah, I put only 10% down. My rates were 14. You don't have to be a great mathematician to know every one of my homes started out negative. But I was well paid and I could sustain the negative. And luckily, I had the vision. I said, look, even at 14%, it's a fixed rate loan. So today it's a negative. In a couple of years, it's going to be break even because the rates keep up with inflation.
Yeah.
And by the way, when rates are 14, inflation is higher. So in a couple of years, it's going to be break even, then positive, then positive. Exactly what happened, except then in a couple of years, rates went down to 12. I refinanced everything to 12. It became positive. And then, Jonathan, came the unforgettable day. The media was screaming, single-digit interest rates.
Yeah.
We all ran out and refinanced to 9.95. What a day that was. And everything became very positive. So that's why, again, 6 is high. Whatever.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think this is really good advice from people who've been in it for a long time, because there are people saying, well, I don't want to have a net negative, even if I'm going to do a house hack. And it's like, well, sometimes that's just part of the long-term game, because if these things happen, another cycle happens, which of course it's going to, you're going to be in business. It's about, if you have the money and the foundation to collect an asset now's a good time. You can definitely look around because inventory is low. But as you said, new home builds are really where you can find deals now because there is a surplus.
What you say is so true. And, I work with a lot of people because I feel this changes lives.
Yeah.
Especially with a 30-year fixed rate loan in the face of constant inflation. By the way, that's why I'm not retired, because that message, the only person in the United States that I've been in touch with in 2012 that got it from the very get-go is Warren Buffett. He wanted to buy a lot of homes for Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah.
He felt that 2012, the prices were still very good. He wanted to buy 70,000 homes, but he knows the 30-year is so crazy good. He wanted to get 70,000 homes for Berkshire, 20% down, 30-year fixed rate loan. And then he said the cutest sentence I've ever heard. I talked to Fannie Mae. They said I can only get 10. Because that was already when they were limiting it.
Yeah.
So they limit you at 10, whether you're a truck driver from Fresno or Warren Buffett.
Right.
They limit you at 10. That's it. So, nobody else gets it. I talked to some high-end CEOs, super geniuses. What? 30-year? Why is it special? They don't get it. How can I retire when it's a life-changing thing? So that's my message. I did a TEDx talk last year. I was invited to do a PBS, a TV special about it. I wrote about 7 books, all about the miracle that exists in the United States, invisible to the inhabitant of the United States.
Yeah. Do you find, what's the percentage of clients for you that are independent who come to you, international that come to you as opposed to American? Because as you said, you're really shining the light on something that people who grow up in other countries are like, are you serious? How is this even possible? And I've had plenty of guests on the show who didn't grow up in America who said the same thing. You don't know how good you have it. Yeah.
I would say my investors over the past 40 years have bought more than 10,000 homes in about 30 markets. I would say 20 to 25% are foreigners.
Yeah. Yeah, and what a great way for them to learn, because it's something that you realized along the way. It's like had the light bulb moment to do it. And it does make sense, because not only are you staying at a rate here while inflation's going like this, your appreciation is going and going and going in America. It's really crazy. I mean, I have people who bought during the pandemic who are now up $250,000, in just 3 years. That can happen, and that's on top of everything else that's happening.
I agree with everything you just said, but I will make it even more humble in a way.
Yeah.
I don't need appreciation. Forget appreciation. When you go, we live in a place here, we have Whole Foods, a chain of a little bit on the high-end side.
Yeah.
You go to Whole Foods today, you buy an organic avocado, $2.25. And I know, and everybody knows, in 10 years, it's going to be $4. Are the economists going to say, there was an appreciation in the avocado sector? No, it's inflation. Yeah. I don't need appreciation. You take appreciation. Just give me inflation.
Yeah.
So when I was buying my first homes, even in the San Francisco Bay Area, the very first home I bought cost $110,000. Today, it's worth $2.8 million. I don't call it appreciation, even if you don't want. Just inflation.
Yeah.
The avocado back then was probably 3 cents. Now it's $2.25. Same thing.
Yeah, well, I like it because then as an owner who owns something, you can look at inflation and have a positive spin on it instead of going with the news headlines like you said, oh, everything's crazy, look at inflation, we're paying so much more for everything. Yeah, okay, things cost more, but all the things that I own are going up in value as well.
So there's another thing about this getting a loan that never changes in the face of constant inflation. You don't need to do much. See, real estate investors are not free of this. And Silicon Valley type people are not free of this. And I'm both. We love to complicate everything. And we also feel like we have to do a lot of work. Somehow we have to make it hard. So sometimes I get invited to speak to an investment group and I sit there and I wait my turn. And here comes the sophisticated investor and he shares the wisdom. And then I bought a chicken coop and I did a 1031 exchange in the middle of the night into a triplex. And then I did. And then I fixed it. And then all I do is I buy brand new homes. I put a down payment. I get a 30-year fixed rate loan. I let the local manager, I'll talk about that in a second, lease them out. And then I proceed to do the hardest action for a human being to do. Nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say wait. Yeah.
Inflation will make us wealthy. No need the chicken coop and the 1031 and then you fix it and you go and you... No. That's why investing in this manner applies to you whether you are a busy professional, maybe you are a nurse, maybe you are a truck driver, maybe you are a doctor. You can still invest because you don't have to do anything. Inflation does the work for you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a classic principle of the book, The Millionaire Next Door. Those are all people who you won't find on social media. They're just doing it. They bought a couple homes and they just let them appreciate. They watched inflation go and up went their money. And then when they had enough for a down payment, because you said they're still working, they just got another one. And that's how there's a lot of people out there who nobody knows who have 20, 30 homes and are very, very well off and doing well for their children as well.
I'll tell you one example out of literally thousands that I have. I have a good friend who was a physician, a doctor, a neonatal specialist. And he started buying homes with me in his 40s, in his early 40s. First, he bought just one home. He was very busy. He wanted to see that the property managers that I put in place in all the markets where we buy and are eager to please us because they got 1,000 homes from us over 20 years.
Yeah.
So they are eager to please him too. He wanted to see that they really do the heavy lifting. So he bought just one home, put a down payment, got a 30-year fixed rate loan. It worked. It rented. It was boring. Bought another one. Ended up buying 22 homes. Again, it's not as impressive as it sounds. At the time he was buying those homes, he was buying brand new homes for $150,000, putting a down payment that was not big at all, and being a doctor. They're very doable. So then when he turned 58, about 13 years later, he looked at his 22 homes. All of them still had loans with 17 years left on them, not even halfway.
Yeah.
However, he put a small down payment, so all his loans started out very high. But after 13 years, they were about 25% of the value of the home. That's what inflation does to something that never changes. So in 22 homes, he had millions of dollars in equity. So he was very thrilled, but he took 5 of the 22 homes and sold them. Nothing fancy, didn't do an exchange, nothing. Sold and paid his taxes, using the proceeds to pay off the remaining 17 tiny loans.
Yeah.
With 17 loans, he quit, retired at 58 from being a doctor, still retired, bugs me all the time, let's go there, I'm working, but no, let's go. So, but that's one of thousands of stories. What about the people who sent their kids to the best universities in the country and paid for it easily from these homes? So this is a life changer. And that, how can I really retire in good faith when there's a message that nobody seems to see?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been talking about this a lot. I mean, to me, I think retirement used to be this thing that people really strived for because they could stop. But you find that most people who retire get really bored, and a lot of people have no purpose after they retire. So I'd like to always work less, but I've been doing that progressively over my life because of my investing, that I'm allowed to be on time freedom now. So to me, if I'm on time freedom, I don't really need to retire because I like real estate. I don't really want to stop working.
You don't even have to tell me, just talking to you. You love this. You love what you do. This is not working. You
Right.
are retired and doing something fun.
Right. And I mean, I think now, with how much reach podcasts can have, we can have this conversation, like I was telling you at the beginning, and it can just go out to someone that will never, we don't know them, but they can really get a lot of advice here, especially from us who we've been doing it for such a long time, and say, like, listen, it's not that hard. And it's also not what the news portrays and what the gurus portray and what social media portrays. It's actually pretty simple if you go back to the core of just why you did it. Hey, I'm going to get my first one with a 30-year loan. I'm going to get it for as little down as possible. And then I'm just going to do nothing.
About 15 years ago, I was interviewed for a big article. I think it was in Fortune magazine even, which is a good magazine.
Yeah.
Very big article. They interviewed me and maybe 10 other people and everything. And so you read that article, Fortune, you think it's like the Bible. Every word must be.
Yeah.
Well, since I got to meet the interviewer, he was a 27-year-old living in a rented apartment with a roommate. That was the guy who wrote the Bible.
Yeah.
Hello.
Well, look, I mean, so I've been a licensed agent for 10 years. And the craziest thing that I found, because I had been investing already for 30 years before I got into that, or 20 years before I got my license, the majority of real estate agents don't even own a home. Like, what do you, or investment properties, you have all the access, you understand the value, and you're not buying your whole career. They could be so much better off, just using the income as it comes, because it comes and goes with commissions.
But Jonathan, I think I may be able to pinpoint why, at least in the area that I live, many local brokers have it in their mind still that if you buy real estate, you need to buy it here.
Yeah.
Well, I happen to live in the San Francisco Bay Area, where to buy a decent home could easily be $2 million.
Right.
And it's only going to rent for maybe $6,000 a month, which is very low rent, not going to work at all.
Yeah.
So the agent doesn't buy. But if the agent knew, hey, I can buy in big cities. I like to buy in the Sunbelt states. I can talk about why.
Yeah.
Big cities, affordable. You can buy homes for $300,000, $250,000, brand new. Then the agent here, who makes one commission, and it could be $45,000,
right,
can buy a house like that. But many of them don't think like that.
Yeah, you're very right. And I would take that and say that I think that's what some of the younger home buyers are going to be looking at, because the prices to buy now aren't going to look attractive in their market. They might be smarter to rent and buy in areas where they can start to accumulate assets that are going to deliver them income.
So true. I wrote an article for an investment magazine, but I'll be happy to share all of those with your viewer and our listeners. Should I buy my own home first? Is the title.
Yeah, I've been talking about it a lot. Great.
Well, of course, in the article, my answer is it depends. Where do you live? If you told me I live in Dallas and I can buy a beautiful home that will satisfy me for $450,000, buy tomorrow. Buy. I know the property tax is high, but buy the home, no problem. Even $600,000, $700,000. But if you're starting to talk $1.2 million, $1.4 million, $1.7 million, 2.7, 2.9 rent, because the rents are extremely low. Actually, I myself, living in the Bay Area, I already owned dozens and dozens of investment homes, and I was a renter. And I remember the numbers. Of course, now the numbers are different, but I remember I was renting a home that was worth $1 million back in the day. My rent was $3,000 a month. People said, how come you don't buy a home? You're buying so. I said, because the rent is so low.
Right. The payments will be way more on a mortgage.
And then people said, but you're not building any. Not building. I just bought 15 homes in the,
Exactly. I mean, that's my point now. And I think that's why the landscape of the idea of home ownership versus investing is changing. I think you made a great point by saying it depends, because it really does. If you can make a good deal that makes sense and the payments are fine, then that's okay. But like you said, if you're talking about these big areas, $2 million home that rents for $6,000, if you buy it, you're going to pay $13,000 in your mortgage payments, so why would you rent the same house and then buy an investment property that's going to bring you income?
Yeah, absolutely, 100% so. And that's why, I mean, buying in other states where it makes sense to buy has always been there. But of course, I needed to. So if I go back to the very beginning, I told you I was living in Palo Alto, working at HP Labs, and I started buying homes in Silicon Valley. After a few homes, I said, I can't build an empire here. The rents were too low.
Yeah.
Even back then. So we didn't have the web. Sergey Brin and Larry Page were in kindergarten. And I still luckily was doing work with Stanford, and they had the ARPANET. That's the precursor to the internet. So when I searched, I said, look, if I fly, nobody was flying to buy it. If I fly an hour and a half, I go to Las Vegas. And there I saw homes that cost 1/4 of the Silicon Valley price, but their rents were closer to 1/2 of the Silicon Valley.
Exactly.
Whoa! Started flying to Vegas. And I looked like a boy back then, like a boy. People were skeptical. Nobody was buying out of state. Nobody wanted to work with me. So I spent my first few months looking for a local property management firm. Because obviously, if I'm going to live in Palo Alto, California, and I'm buying home in Vegas, I need management.
Yeah.
Finally, I had a management firm that I liked. I was still very nervous because I didn't have a chance to test them in the field yet.
Yeah.
And a realtor took pity on the crazy boy from California and said, I'll find you homes. And I went about it very aggressively. I bought 22 homes in my first year.
Wow.
Before people get impressed by that number, and Jonathan, I need for you to promise me that you're not going to laugh. The average home I bought in Vegas at that time, the entire cost of the home was $39,000.
$39,000 per home?
Per home. That's in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Now, not only that, back then, Fannie Mae didn't limit the number of loans that you could have. And as an investor, I could put only 10% down with PMI or private mortgage insurance, which is what I did because I didn't have a lot of cash. So I bought 22 homes. Obviously not so hard to do when you get a Silicon Valley salary, but still more than anyone I knew. I never knew a person until then that owned 20 homes. And I did all of a sudden. By the way, it works wonders for your confidence in everything else. Because you start walking a little taller. Hey, I own 20 homes. It's good for everything. But pretty soon, in the first year when I was doing it, my Silicon Valley friends were absolutely mercilessly ribbing me and making fun of me because I was buying out of state. Nobody was buying out of state.
Yeah.
But after a year, the logic of the engineers prevailed. And they said, we understand what you're doing. We want to do it too. I said, you should go, do it, go. It'll change your life. And they said, hey, you know how busy we are. You work in Silicon Valley. You're already there with your managers and your home. How about you lead us? I said, lead? Okay, I'll lead you. I led a group of about 20 engineers. And over about 3.5 years, we bought something like 250 homes. Not as a group. She bought 6 homes for herself. He bought 4. I bought a few more. I discovered that even the very cautious engineer who bought just one little home in Vegas enjoyed the clout, the power of 250 homes. Because the service providers, the managers especially, knew if he was not happy, he would complain to me.
Right.
And now I'm not happy, and every manager in Vegas is calling me, come to us. We are cheaper, we are nicer, we are taller, we are prettier, we are better. Who doesn't want to manage 250 homes? So today, when we bought 10,000 homes, and in some of our markets, we gave them 1,000 homes to manage, 2,000. Yeah. We even have one metropolitan area where we bought more than 3,000 homes. So even the small investor who comes in, buys just one home, enjoys the clout of 1,000 homes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it solves all the problems in the universe, but it makes it nice.
Yeah, it's group scale to help an individual investor, which helps. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Adiel Gorel, and if you're interested in what he's doing at ICG Real Estate Investments, all you need to do is go to icgre.com/properties. You'll be on the invest page. You can see testimonials from others who have changed their financial future. That's the spot. Now let's get back to the show. Let's talk geographically, because I want to get into that as before we finish up. So geographically, what are your major metros? I know there's 30 of them, but where have you done the most deals that you find to still be the best opportunity for investors?
Well, that's the critical. You are right at the heart of the best question that could be asked. So the 30 markets were over 40 years. Some of them don't make sense anymore.
Right. That's important, though, to know, though, that you have to pivot over time and say, okay, the returns aren't the same as you were saying when you started in Silicon Valley. Hey, I like this, but I can get better returns somewhere else.
Okay, so my criteria of where to buy starts with the demographics. So I've been a student of the demographics for decades. Even if you look at the census, it's very clear the demographic growth goes to the south, to the Sun Belt states. So number one, I only want to buy in the Sun Belt states. States like Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. I don't buy in the North or in the Midwest. Okay, fine. That's one.
Yeah.
Number two, large metropolitan areas for job diversity and economic diversity. Number three, suburbs. Families with kids go to school like a root in the ground, very stable.
Yeah.
Number four, I learned after a few years only to buy only brand new homes. Many benefits. I'm not going to go. I wrote an article about it. I can share it. Brand new homes. And so we go into a market like that. We interview management companies. Of course, now it's very easy because everybody wants to work with us. We choose one, a local broker. We give them the acid test, buy 10, 20, 30 homes, see how they are.
Yeah.
If we don't like them, we replace until we do. And then we want to give them business over years and decades to want to really trust and like them. So some of the biggest markets, Jonathan, where we bought, Phoenix Metro was our biggest market ever. Over 20-something years, we bought more than 3,000 homes. Phoenix is about 15 cities, really. It's not just one.
Yeah.
But right now, as of today, the following markets where we bought so many thousands of homes don't work. Las Vegas doesn't work. Phoenix, Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Huntsville, Nashville, Denver, Salt Lake City, Atlanta, Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami don't work. Now, I'm still in touch with all the teams we have in those markets. And if things shift, they will come back. For example, I'm considering seeing if Dallas can squeak back in, even though the property tax is so high.
Yeah, I feel like Texas and Florida are the best options to come back just because they have more inventory than many of the other areas.
Yeah, but all of those markets that I just mentioned do not work. So what the heck does work?
Yeah.
So right now, there's Oklahoma City. I mean, it's right in the center of the country, relatively close to Dallas, cheaper than Dallas by far. The property taxes are 250% less than in Dallas. We bought more than 2,000 homes there over the past 21 years.
Yeah.
And the management is excellent. So the Oklahoma City market, the Tulsa, Oklahoma market, Mobile, Alabama also works. We've been buying there for about 17 years now. The most expensive market we're still in is Raleigh-Durham, the Research Triangle in North Carolina. It's more expensive, but it still works. And in Florida, the Orlando market is too high, but north, east, and south of Orlando, central Florida still works. Now, as of today, when we're talking, you can get brand new homes in Oklahoma City for as little as probably $210,000 on the lower end, and as much as maybe $280,000 on the higher end. Same in Tulsa. In Mobile, maybe $270,000 to $320,000. In Central Florida, maybe $250,000 to $320,000. In Raleigh-Durham, maybe $270,000 to $370,000. More expensive.
Yeah.
They all work well. I mean, and I'm always in touch with the old people, not old, but the veteran people,
Yeah.
to see whether we can bring back Atlanta, or we can bring back Dallas or Austin. Yeah. But, in Texas, it's a little difficult because the property tax is so high.
Yeah, well, I live in New Jersey. Our property taxes are the worst in the country, so nobody wants to invest here. There's still a way to do it, but it's not something where someone would place an investor here. They have to have a reason for coming here, being close to New York City, something like that.
New Jersey falls very similar to a similar place as where I live. It's too expensive.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite. I think you also have some pretty high taxes. Yeah, so you and I are in the same boat that way.
Yeah.
By the way, I only bought myself a home to live in after 20 years of doing it. Just because at that time, it wasn't all just about logic. What the heck?
Yeah.
But I didn't buy a home for 20 years.
Yeah, but you bought plenty of other investment homes, which is, both of our ideas for, hey, this is what people need to look for now. It doesn't have to be the white picket fence at the time that you thought, because you can still have a white picket fence and a really nice rental that's brand new, because that's what your clients are buying and then renting to people who want to do that.
Well, I don't want to take away from the value of the white picket fence, because you can cut it and take it to the football game and you can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
Very
true.
But I mean, there is so much to be said. People say, if I don't buy a home, I don't build equity. Well, but if you buy investment homes, you build. But what about the tax? Oh, tax? You want to talk about that? Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So when you buy your own home in New Jersey, you can deduct the mortgage interest and the property tax. Can you deduct anything else? No. There's a limit too, $10,000 a year. If you bought a $2 million homes, you're not gonna, deduct a lot. When you buy investment homes, you deduct all the mortgage interest, all the property tax, all the insurance, all the repair, all the travel, all the thing. Everything is deductible. And to add insult to injury in a positive way, you depreciate the sucker. You can't do it on your own home. When I talk in other countries, they say, what? In the US, you buy homes that go up in value? Yet for tax, you let them treat them like a machine that goes down in. What kind of a country? Well, it's a great country. It's a great country. And by the way, that's not all. Some of your viewers may be saying, oh, you know what? I wish I'd done it when I was 40 or 50. Really? My oldest investor started, at 86.
Wow.
I have a lady right now who started investing, at 84. She's now, 88. Why? She saw the doctor who retired that I told you about. She had lost her husband a couple of years before and was privy to the awesome power of another structure, which is just insane, called a step-up basis.
Yeah.
So she's buying rental homes not only for herself, she's in good health, but for her family, because the day she passes on, the basis climbs to the value. The next day they can not pay any tax if they sell it. It's really, I was trying once to wonder, why is it so good? And I think, okay, Congress is largely wealthy people. Wealthy people usually own real estate. So why not make it unbelievably good?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a lesson for people out there. I like to be diversified. I still like to invest in stocks, but real estate has always been my thing. I think you can diversify just in real estate geographically by the amount of units. If you're having single families or multifamilies, commercial, there's so many ways to diversify inside real estate as well. So if someone new comes to you now and they have this, $250,000 potential on a loan to spend, what do you tell them about how to get educated on how to get started?
The beautiful thing is, once again, as I said before, I try to simplify, because we all, logical people like me, like you, we all try to complicate. Naturally, we are complicated people. We like Excels, and I didn't read enough books. I only read 67 books. Where do I read another 100 books? No, don't read any books. Nike's got it right. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just buy a brand new home, put a down payment, and that's it. So, I try to say, I will tell the person, listen, here are the markets. Let me connect you to one of the teams. I would prefer if you flew over there to see at least the
I
first
agree.
home. Yeah. And then buy your first home. Once you buy home number one, you've broken you've broken, now all your fears have been realized in that one. Buying home number two is just a repetition of the same process. Buying home number four is downright boring already. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
So I would say you don't have to, well, maybe I would say read one of my books, because I try to explain it also in a very simple way. Read one of my books. Here is a link in Amazon. But you don't need much, because my aim for you, let's say you're not a great experienced real estate investor. Let's say you work in a company in New Jersey in high tech. You're busy enough. I don't want to make you more busy by reading. I'll connect you. You'll buy your first home. It'll work. You'll buy your second home. You don't have to do much. By the way, I want to say something about something that you said before about cash flow. Many people have read too many books. And in those books, some of which are from the 1980s, they say, you should only buy under the 1% rule. The rent should be, oh, really? That was true in 1980s.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But I mean, when you buy a home and you put a small down payment and you start out with a negative cash flow, which is not going to be the case today because the rates are so low, even though they say they're high.
Yeah.
I look at your cash flow when you're buying it. Remember, I said you work in high tech now. You're married. Your wife also works in high tech. You make a few $100,000 a year. She makes a few. That's your cash flow. At the beginning, the cash flow comes from you. Don't load it on the poor house. But you wait 12 years down the road. Oh, you may not have to work again.
Yeah.
How do we feed you? So people have the wrong concept of. I wrote an article for an investment magazine just a couple of months ago. I'll be happy to share it. What is cash flow? And many new investors think it's the cash flow on day one. No, it's the cash flow over the life of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I look at actually return on investment. I look at IRR, internal rate of return. So if, let's say I bought a property, I know every dollar in the down payment that I put, my closing cost, everything. Then I held it over 10, 15 years. I know every dollar, the rents I got in, I paid the manager, the repair, I know everything. Then I sold it. I know every dollar I got, I paid commission. I can plug all of these dates and dollars into a formula in Excel called XIRR. I have yet to ever make less than 15% return IRR. And sometimes when I was putting small down payments, 27% return IRR. So this is outstanding. But in the first year or two or three, let's say the rates go up to 10. Now, if you put the smallest down payment possible, you'll start out with a little negative, a couple of $100.
Yeah.
But you're making a couple of $100,000 a year. So what, you're not going to buy food now? Don't load it on the poor house. Let it sit there and do its job.
Yeah, I mean, the key really from everything that we've talked about is to be patient and let it be boring, right? I mean, it's not that hard, but people like to tinker with things. They're 3 months in and they're like, oh, it's not doing as well as I thought. I better sell it. Wow, that doesn't make any sense. That's the same thing that people do when they, send out mailers for off-market properties and they quit after 1 month. You haven't given it the time to marinate.
What you just said is one of the worst mistakes that an investor can do. Luckily, it's only a very small sliver of people. They bought a home, something happens. The tenant wasn't nice, they left. They said, that's it, I'm selling. It's an emotional. You paid closing costs buying. Now you pay commissions and closing costs. You've lost money by definition. And then years later, you say, I sold the home for X. Remember my family?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a perfect way to sum it up and to go back to the beginning. I really appreciate it. So if people want to get in touch with you for those investments, is the best place to go is icgre.com?
Yes. ICGRE for real estate. ICGRE.com. And if people want to get the magazine articles that I wrote, the TEDx link, the television show, for PBS, send us an email at info@icgre.com. I'll be happy to share.
Yeah, and they can also find you on LinkedIn and social, and your website is adielgorel.com.
Actually, that's my website for a speaker. I love speaking. I love public speaking, but our company website for the real estate is icgre.com. And by the way, since I decided not to retire, I needed to find balance in my life. So I make music in my spare time in my home studio. These are some of my tools.
Yeah, awesome.
I have a health and wellness podcast, and then I dedicate half my time for meetings. So anybody who wants to speak to me, I'm passionate, as you can tell. I'll speak to you one-on-one. I'll guide you because I think this is life-changing.
Yeah, I agree. I really appreciate it. And I think it's been eye-opening for people to learn as we go through everything about what we've been through over the cycles of investment and how it can apply to today, especially our conversation about the rates, which I think people should really take and understand that it's not as bad as they thought. I really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute pleasure getting you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, my pleasure. That was Adiel Gorel of ICG Real Estate Investments. You can find him and the company at icgre.com. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on the next episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And it's Michael Albaum, the founder of MyFI Academy. That stands for financial independence, and how he got there all the way through 65 doors, single family, multifamily, flipping, short-term rentals, midterm rentals, double net and triple net leases. He's an engineer turned real estate investor. Can't wait for you to hear the show.